everyone, welcome back to the Handmade Homestead. I'm Angela Allen, and today I want to talk about tomatoes. And I'm going to give you 7 ways to use them all with no waste. Right now, standing here, I have about 100 pounds of frozen, ripe, ready to use and work with tomatoes in my freezer. I also have all of those. So today I want to talk about what I can do with all these tomatoes to make sure none of them go to waste. Are you ready? Let's go. Number 1 would be to use them fresh. When you have them fresh, use them. Put them in salad, make fresh sauces, put them in soup, any way you can. Use them up fresh as much as you can first. Anything extra that you can't use fresh, those go in the freezer, and those can be added to the things that come after this. Number 2, make tomato sauce or pasta sauce or pizza sauce. They're all the same thing. The only thing different is the amount of herbs or the kind of herbs you put in them. Tomato products are among the easiest products to process, to can. It's water bath canning, not pressure canning. It's easy. You just follow the basic recipe, basic steps, and they last beautifully. Now, when I make tomato sauce or pasta sauce or pizza sauce, I literally put the tomatoes in the roaster. I do not peel them. I do not remove the seeds or the cores. I just make sure that they're really clean. Everything else gets pureed up with a stick blender, and I get great, I like really thick sauce, almost like paste. I do it so thick, and I just dilute it when I use it, use half a jar instead of a whole jar. So that's number 2. I'm going to be making lots of that until all of the tomatoes are used up that I have. And yeah, so there's that one. Number 3 is kind of a dual one. It's 3 and 4 really. You can make tomato juice and stewed or just tomatoes in a jar. So when I'm going to jar tomatoes, and these are whole and half tomatoes, and there are yellow and orange and red ones in here, and you'll see a basil leaf too. I put 1 basil leaf in each jar. When I'm going to make tomatoes like this, jarred tomatoes, I do use a variety of tomatoes, and because modern tomatoes don't have the same acid level as the old-fashioned tomato kinds, and they have a lot more water in them sometimes too, I always use citric acid. You can use lemon juice too, but I don't want the lemony flavor in my tomatoes. So I use citric acid in every single jar just to make sure the acid's high enough when I process them, when I water bath process them. I find that I use canned tomatoes more than I actually even use tomato sauce, because I can use them just like this, hit them with a stick blender and make sauce out of them, or use them whole in recipes too. It just seems like it's more versatile to me. Now when I'm making tomatoes like this, I just dump all the tomatoes you're gonna see in the video, dump all the tomatoes right into the roaster and start cooking them down. And as they thaw out, I remove the skins at that point, and I don't remove the seeds from this, but I remove the skins. The other thing that I remove as it's cooking down, I don't add any water to my tomatoes. I cook very low until they're all defrosted, and then as I take off the skins, I also skim off some of the tomato juice. That's what this is. Now when you can it, it separates out the liquid and the solid, so you just have to shake it. We love homemade tomato juice. All that's in this is citric acid and just a tiny, tiny bit of salt. And then it's shelf stable until we drink it, and it's really, really good. I do strain the tomato juice to make sure there's no skin and no seeds and only very little pulp in it. I just push it through a fine sieve to do that. When I cook tomatoes like this, to do whole tomatoes, I do take out the skin. I do not take out the seeds, but I don't throw the tomato skins away. I dehydrate them. That brings me to the next one. Number 5 would be all of the tomato skins I remove from these tomatoes. Those go directly on the dehydrator. Takes a couple days to dehydrate them. I take those dry, crispy tomato skins and I wait till they're crispy like a potato chip. Put them in my blender and I make tomato powder. I don't know if you can see that. It smells like fresh summer tomatoes. So tomato powder is basically just tomato paste dehydrated. It's super, super strong tomato flavor. If I'm making spaghetti and my sauce is a little bit thin, or if I just want to add a little bit of extra tomato flavor to soup or a stew that I'm making, or even if my taco meat needs just a little more boost of flavor, tomato powder. Super easy to store, will last forever. It's going to come in handy. I wish I had more of it. Number 6, maybe my favorite, and that's drying the tomatoes themselves. I do dry quite a few of them. I don't know if you can see them through the plastic, the shininess. So these are dried tomatoes. I just cut the tomatoes like these, and that's probably what we'll end up with some of these. I slice them very, very thin. These are a Juliet cherry tomato. So can you see they're not really full of liquid. They're very meaty, and they have a really nice blemish-free, perfect skin. They don't even split. I don't see many disease problems with Juliet. It is a hybrid. It's the only hybrid thing I probably grow in my garden besides sunflowers. And I grow it every year, and I love this tomato. So it's very prolific too, and it's very consistent. These make great sun-dried tomatoes. So I cut them sometimes just in half, sometimes in little slivers, depends on what I want to do with them. And then I do put them on the dehydrator. It takes several days, 2 or 3 days sometimes. I dehydrate on very, very low heat because I want to maintain the freshness, and the sugar will caramelize if they get too hot and they get kind of brown, and I don't really like that. So you can see these are not. So dried tomatoes, these are super versatile. They last a really long time. I do keep them in airtight containers mostly. This one isn't because it's up in my working pantry and it will get used up pretty quickly. But yeah, you can throw them in pretty much anything. They rehydrate pretty quickly, just like a dried mushroom would. But here's my favorite thing to do with them. I put them in a jar, and then I fill the jar with olive oil, stick it right in the fridge. So I have sun-dried tomatoes. These little jars, half this size, are $4 or $5 or $6 at the grocery store. Doesn't cost me anything but the price of the oil. These are tomatoes that, again, need to be used up, like those back there. So these are delicious. Even in a regular cold salad, once you leave them in the oil for a couple of days, they rehydrate some from the oil and they get kind of chewy and leathery, but they're not tough, and they're delicious. They're really good on Italian sandwiches too. So that is the 6th way that I use them. So number 7 would be tomato jam. Now I'm not going to go through how to make tomato jam. I do have a video about that, and I will post it right here up in the corner for you so you can look it up and watch it. It's a pretty fun little video. But tomato jam uses a lot of tomatoes. You can start with fresh or you can start with frozen, so it's pretty versatile to make. It's delicious, and it's kind of like an upscale ketchup. My family loves it on meat dishes, and it's a good choice for using up produce. Now, are there about a million more ways to do tomatoes? There are. That's the truth. But for the 100 pounds in my freezer and all of the other tomatoes that we've brought in, used, given away, my husband and I together, we've probably grown 250 pounds of tomatoes this year. And that's just one crop. We grow dozens and dozens of different things. So, yeah. That's my tomato story. If you have other ways that you use tomatoes to preserve them for the colder weather, let me know down below. I would love to have your ideas. I am always looking for more ideas to expand what I can do for my family and the ways that I can use produce to prevent waste. And I really, really would love your suggestions. So recipes too, always welcome. Suggestions, always welcome. So that's it for today. I'm gonna get this stuff all put away and clean up my kitchen, and yeah, I'll talk to you soon.